Hello, I'm David, and it's time for some daily bread. Anytime in life that we are facing something that's upsetting to us, that is causing us some anxiety, that is perhaps even causing us to struggle, one of the things that is probably going to be most helpful to us, especially if this is an ongoing thing, is to know God a little better. The better we know God, the more at peace and confident and calm we are able to be in our lives. That is just generally a truth. And so I want us to go today to the 121st Psalm. And it is a rather famous psalm, but not for the reason that we're going to be noting from it today. It's famous because of how the passage opens. Psalm 121 and verse 1, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Now, there's very good reason why that is such a memorable and meaningful passage to so many people. But what the writer of the psalm goes on to say, in the very next verse, He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. And though we don't recognize it just quite yet, that phrase, He who keeps you, that description of God is going to dominate the rest of the psalm and probably needs to be understood as the primary thrust of this psalm. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. There's the second time that idea of keeping. Verse 5, the Lord is your keeper. And he's going to go on 3 more times in this short psalm, it's only 8 verses long, to describe the action of God or the character of God as this keeper and the one who keeps us. Now, that is a very important way to think about God. Now, some translations in this passage won't use the word keep, they will use the word protect. Some use the term guard. But this is a characteristic of God. God is our keeper, our protector, our guardian. It puts me in mind of a profession that we know about in our world, of a groundskeeper. You think about on a golf course, there is a groundskeeper. The responsibility of the groundskeeper is to keep the grass, the fairways, the greens, the rough, the whole physical thing that makes up this golf course. He is responsible for that. And think about what he does. He protects it. He nourishes it. He waters it. He provides for it what it needs to be what it is. Also, you might realize that a groundskeeper is one who does most of his work out of the public eye. That is, he does his work without anybody else watching and seeing what's being done. What they see, what we see, is the end result of that. He is the grounds keeper. God is our keeper. We like that idea, don't we? We want God to be our keeper, our protector, our guardian. But what we need to remember about that is that God's not applying for a job. We're not setting the terms of what He should and should not do as our keeper, although we do that, don't we, in our minds? We have an idea of what we think God should and should not do, but that comes from us, not necessarily from God. What might help us here is that this is the very way God described Himself when He spoke with Jacob. Now, this is found in Genesis 28. This happened when Jacob was leaving home. Remember, Esau is so mad at him that he wants to kill him. And his parents, Isaac and Rebekah, encourage him to go back to the land and the home and the family of his mother, Rebekah's family. And so he's on his way there. And you remember this memorable night when Jacob falls asleep. He has nowhere to lay his head but to make a pillow of stones. And that night he has the dream, Jacob's ladder, the ladder extending from earth to heaven, angels ascending and descending, God standing at the top, at the head of that ladder. Well, on the next day, as God speaks to him, he says, among other things, this is in verse 15, I will be with you, I am with you, and will keep you. There it is. God promises to keep Jacob. Now, when we go from that point and look at the experiences of Jacob from that point on, we know that that did not mean that God was going to not allow anybody to mistreat him. He was not going to not allow any difficulties to come into Jacob's life, because they did, but still, God was his keeper. And as we encounter the difficulty struggles that we face, we need to remember, God is my keeper. I can have confidence in that, and I can have confidence in him. And because I can have that confidence in him, then I need not have the anxieties and the worries and the troubling sensation in my life and in my spirit because of these difficulties. God has promised, and he fulfills his promises. God is my keeper.